as we take a look at the season of emancipation, then you know today, the 12th of June, is the day in which we pay tribute to King Cuffee. And you know, there's a song in the Methodist Church that I sang as a little boy, Tell Me the Story of Jesus. Well, hope today they'll tell me the story of King Cuffee. And that's what we're talking about today, because lest we forget, there's a lot that we can still learn from King Cuffee and his experience and the revolt of then and how it conditions us to now. But I don't want to tell the story. These gentlemen can tell the story better than I can. We have with us Rodney Grant, who is the advisor to reparations and the economic enfranchisement program in the Division of Culture. Next name is Dr. Javier Wallace, a heritage consultant and a storyteller. My grandmother always said a storyteller is a liar, but that's not what I'm calling you today. So she said, don't ever call a person a liar, call them a storyteller. Thank you, Mom. Indeed. And across from me is Professor Stephen Hayes, who's from the Carolinas, as a matter of fact. And as we started, here we are at the end, indeed. And so let's talk a little bit about the story of Cuffee, King Cuffee, and why it's relevant today still.
So, morning again, Pearson. Is happy to be back to be here. It was on this day in 1675 that, you know, Cuffee had the plot to not only to resist slavery, but to become the first king of Barbados. Mm-hmm. You know, it was said that if Cuffee's plot was actually successful, that, you know, he was looking to establish himself as a king, because he was a king in the nation he came from, and he was, you know, they had everything prepared. They had stool, the Ghanaian Akan stool, and I know they were prepared to install him as the first king of Barbados. So this day, even before we had 1816, the Bastille Rebellion, we had Cuffee and the enslaved fighting for their freedom in 1675. And this day is a significant reminder again for us to remember that, you know, these enslaved represent a resilience that we must hold dear. It reminds us of what we can do in the face of adversity when all odds seem to be against us, that you can still have hope. And, you know, hope is one of those things you can never lose. When you lose hope, you lose everything. And although things are stacked against you, you must still have hope that you can see brighter days. And so 1675 reminds us of the hope that is enduring, and I believe that should dwell in all of us and should be one of the compelling legacies of 1675, that we must always remember to have hope, no matter how sometimes things might seem dire. We must have hope that it can be better, and it will be better.
Yeah. And there's so many glaring examples. King Cuffee is one of them. You use the word resilience, but oftentimes we see them as rebellious. Not necessarily the most positive definition in which we delight, in which we see people, but how could we be rebellious, Javier, when we were just being?
Well, I actually think rebellious is a good way to explain or describe the condition and maybe the way that many enslaved people would have felt. And what we saw manifest itself in 1675 with King Cuffee is these were individuals who were not content with their condition and what they were forced to be in. And, you know, for so long, to justify the violent system of enslavement, those who were enslaving people and were supporters of the system used the terminology and language of pacification, or these people were passive and they actually enjoyed it, or they needed this type of condition to be the full humans that they believed that we never were. But I think it's apropos to describe them as rebellious in that moment. I think for us, as Mr. Grant has said, like, we have to embody some type of rebellious spirit to know that better days will come, and we can lean on the things that our ancestors have done for us, even if it didn't transpire the way that they wanted it to, that they were rebellious in spirit because they were hopeful and hoped for a better day to come.
And the reason I said that, I'm glad you phrased it in the way you did, because oftentimes we label the individual as opposed to the action. He was simply saying, I am not someone to be caged. I am more than that. And so my actions were rebellious, but I'm not the rebellious person you want me to be. I'm a king, as a matter of fact. And so he was hoping for his coronation. What is a cultural consultant, by the way? Just out of curiosity.
Well, for me, I'm a cultural consultant because I have studied race, culture on a global level, and I do a lot of work. And so when I say cultural consultant, which just means going into different spaces, whether they're local or far, and thinking about the way culture impacts society and how do we tell those stories and how do we think about culture in ways that are accessible to the general population, documentaries, art projects, walking tours, teaching in classrooms, and so just different way culture manifests and helping tell stories in different spaces.
So now I know that. How should we tell the story of King Cuffee?
I think Barbados is doing an amazing job of telling the story of King Cuffee, the desire of the Division of Culture to want to take this to not only a stage here in Barbados, but to globalize it and collaborating with amazing individuals and great artists like Stephen Hayes to not only tell the story here in a way that's not just on black and white reading the textbook, but something that people can see, that they can touch, that they can engage with, that they can see in the water, that they can see outside of the water, and that it connects to different places around the world. I think it's one of the best ways to learn and to engage that's not just in a textbook.
Yeah. And that's where you come in, Professor, not just in a textbook, but to connect it to reality and to life. How easy or difficult is it to teach this kind of history generally?
For the most part, sometimes it's difficult, but then learning the history makes it a whole lot easier, and then connecting with the communities makes it a lot easier. So that's one of the main things with the artwork that I like to do is connect with the community to help make what I do as an artist to turn this artwork into history, as a living history where people will come in and see it. And even engaging with the community, it allows to tell this story from time to come. So, yes.
But it has to be tangible.
Yeah.
And I said it deliberately because there's some people of us who are very tactile. If you can't touch it, it doesn't exist.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so we find it difficult to assimilate that information. But here's a man in 1675 who we didn't even meet. I wasn't even thought of at that time.
Yes.
Why should I care? Often you're met with that kind of a resistance in acknowledging your history.
Yeah.
What would you say?
Why should you care? You have to think about everything that led up to you being just who you are right now. The history of what he did to help free you all from being enslaved is important. It's an important history to think about, like, okay, so he did this, so what can I do to further the next generation? So like our generations they need to learn what happened in the past to help figure out what's going to happen in our future.
You use the word, you're an artist.
Yes, artist, creator. Yes.
Artist, creator, what do you mean by that?
So a creator, I like to use my artwork as a way to connect with people and create things. Like sometimes it doesn't have to mean anything. It's more about the work. Or as an artist, it has to mean a lot. So there's two hand-in-hand force with each other.
Behind you, but you don't have to turn around. I'm looking at the screen where there's mostly you're making a mold.
Yes.
That's the kind of work that you do?
Yes, so I like to pull from life. I use my models. I use models to come in. I like to cast from them because that's a way of telling a story from time to time. So like, if there's a person I'm casting for a certain purpose, their great grandkids are going to come in and like, hey, that's my granddaddy, and he is posing for the likeness of this person here, and it's going to continue to tell this story from generations to come. So I do more life castings.
Ronnie, is so important he's here because we need, again, I come back to being tactile. To tell that story, we need to see sometimes.
Tangible. Tangible.
So what are we doing?
So actually tomorrow, and this is why these gentlemen are here, they've been working with us for the last 2 months or so, and we actually put in a bus to represent King Cuffee in the ocean tomorrow at Spikestown, and we're leaving it in the ocean for a year so it can take on the natural form of the ocean. And we're going to come back next year at the same time and take it out of the ocean. Actually, tomorrow's Friday, right?
Yeah.
I'm just making sure because I get my days
time is really strange.
Yeah, I get my days all mixed up. So actually, we were supposed to put it in today, which is Coffee Day, but we couldn't for certain circumstances.
Yeah, we said it's really choppy.
Yeah, so we're going to do it tomorrow. So it's going to be a bus with 6 hands, and we molded hands of the children. The children are the hope that we talk about, the future. Cuffee represents the incident in 1675, while the hands represents the future and what is possible in terms of going forward. So it's an exciting project for us in the Division of Culture, as part of our memorialization and how we keep memories and legacies alive, and how we use them as teaching moments. We like to think, and Minister always pushes it, that the season of emancipation is a moment for us to always to reflect, to educate, because history is the thing that must guide us. You answer the question, why should we look back? And for me, history is like, where we leave little strands of DNA that is so important to our makeup. So our makeup is who we are as a people, our character, our good nature, and these are the strands that we can learn from history and the legacies that are left for us from our ancestors that we can use to be better people and be better citizens. And we hope that from all of these examples and all the things that we are trying to do in the Division of Culture, that we can continue to shape an identity and a character that is important for the Barbadian person to want to be, to want to learn from, so that we can continue to build up a better society. And that is one of the fundamental roles of culture, and that culture must continue to play.
Sometimes we look ahead and all we see is darkness, but when we look back, we see how far we've come. That distance traveled requires resilience. It requires at times rebellion. It requires also reshaping who we are, because we're buffered by all of realities. And so this season of emancipation allows us to be able to do so. Tomorrow's lowering of the bust into the sea at Spitestown. Is there a ceremony happening there? What time?
It starts at 10. So we're gonna have the normal formal ceremony on the beach. We're gonna explain the process, how we got there, and then we're gonna excitingly go out on a barge. Where we go some ways 200-300 yards out into the ocean.
You don't like water.
Once you on the surface, I'm not too fond of
Babe will go to the barge.
I am not too fond of it. But we have some divers on standby, because we are working also with the Coastal Zone Management Unit. We must thank them for their support. They lent us earlier a marine diver. She went down and she mapped an area for us in terms of where we should put this bus. So I think we're going something like 20 or 30 feet under the water. So anyhow, we're gonna go out. I asked for a life vest, make sure they have a life vest for me for sure. So we're gonna go out and we're gonna do the ceremony then out on the barge and watch it being submerged into
All right, so folks, tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock, near the jetty area.
Right opposite the Esplanade.
Esplanade area. We know where we're going tomorrow. Go there in enough time to witness the actual bust and the hands and everything else before they're lowered. And then be there a year later when they're removed, and we will see for ourselves the distance it's traveled. And so I want to thank each of you gentlemen. Rodney Grant, of course, the advisor to Reparations and Economic Enfranchisement Program in the Division of Culture. Dr. Javier Wallace, a heritage consultant and a storyteller. I do telling great stories. Professor Stephen Hayes, who is himself an artist, a sculptor indeed of note. And so, gentlemen, wish you all the best. And tomorrow is a significant day, as much as is today as well.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.